Well, howdy, folks, and welcome to another Casual Convo. I am terribly excited to be having a chat with John B. Stewart, aka JB from the Hawthorn Rowing Club. JB, thank you for joining me.
Great pleasure, Guy.
This is sort of, I have to laugh. You've got some deja vu, haven't you, JB?
A little bit.
Because this is the third time around, because a week ago I totally botched it. The audio wasn't working, so that was thrown in the bin. And we've just had the last half hour of chatting and I hadn't pressed the record button. So we're third time round. JB, I admire your tenacity and your perseverance. I think this goes to the level of athlete you are in the boat. So thank you for sticking through and not telling me to get stuffed and hanging up the phone at this point.
Well, I'm not doing anything special, Guy. We can crack on all night if you want.
We could. Now, before I get into tonight's discussion, what I want to chat about is planning, short, medium, long term, and what our thoughts are on that. But before we do move into that, you're not new to the old media. You're not new to having a chat, and you do a great job at the head of the Yarra. Do you enjoy doing that?
Yes, Guy. I love doing it. I look forward to it. I've done it for a long time with Peter Landy, and then for a couple of years when he wasn't available, our past president, who unfortunately is no longer with us, Dennis Burke, Dr. Dennis Burke. I did it with him for a couple of years. So, I really enjoy that time of year and getting involved down at the head of the Yarra. Yep.
And we've done many rows in the Burke boat out of Hawthorn, and I don't know if we do it great justice, but it's always fun to jump in it. Now, on the commentary ahead of the Yarra, you're there for hours. There's a lot of downtime. How do you come up with the words of wisdom that you guys, just yourself and Peter, just keep going through and giving us a lot of insight? Where do you come up with all of that? Is it all off the cuff?
A lot of it is, Guy. I've worked with Peter, as you know, for a number of years. I realise that it's going more than 20 years now. And we sort of know how each other tick and what our thought processes are, and we can sort of anticipate what we're going to do and what we're going to say. But I sort of winged it for a long time and just did a lot of off the cuff stuff. But this year, because Peter's very prepared, he's very professional. He's worked obviously with Channel 7 for donkey's years, doing all sorts of sports. And I thought I'd do a bit of preparation myself this year. So we got information from some of the crew reps from around Australia, and got some background information, and I did a bit of research and put it together. And I used that during the day between when the crews were coming down and between spots where we had to make public announcements or remind people about our sponsors. And it seemed to fill the time pretty well with little anecdotes from people that was representing crews from all around Australia and Victoria, all around the place, really.
Well, that's one of the great things about the event, isn't it? You get all these interstate crews, and they've all got great stories, and they're using the sport to travel and hopefully win some medals themselves and so forth, which is great. International crews and so forth, and we're on track to be the next head of the Charles, aren't we? Down under.
Well, I'd love to think so. I'd love to think it was on people's bucket list, and to that extent, I have actually reached out to people on the International Masters Rowers Facebook group and said, put it on your bucket list, and like the Hard, you should do it once in your life. Try to get down to Melbourne.
Yeah, look, absolutely. But you're also backed up beautifully by John Perry and Julie Cochin, aren't you, too? Because I know when you break away to them and they get the people on the ground and stick a microphone in their face and say, have a chat, and they do a great job.
Yeah, they do, and Catherine Ashley down in the city did a great job as well.
Yep, she did, and she grabbed myself and Owen, who was one of the other coxes down there, and we had a chat to her pre-race, and I saw her going around and grabbing people, and I think it's really good to get a bit of insight from people pre-race as well as the people post-race, because for those that don't know, which I imagine is no one who's listening to this, but those that don't know, that the Head of the Yarra is an 8-kilometre race, and it's a whole different thing at the end than it is at the start as far as your mindset and how you're feeling about things. So great getting interviews from all of those guys.
Yeah, it's they all do a great job. They're all naturals, but behind the microphone, and we had a great technical crew up in the shed too. Rob and Pat was involved, and a few other people that put it all together. It was very different last year, 2023, because previous years Peter and I have just stood on the landing, with a microphone, but this time we're in a little sort of mini camp set up with TV monitors and headsets and microphones and boards where we had to switch microphones on and off and all sorts of things. But I was a bit intimidated at first. Peter was great, obviously, having the experience, but on top of it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I walked into the upstairs there where all that whole control room was going on, and it reminded me of a bloody Range Rover. Meaning there's so many parts that can go wrong, and like a Range Rover, they do go wrong. But no, look, you do a great job, and I'm looking forward to listening to you again this coming year. And I reckon what we need to do is do a live show ahead of the Head of the Yarra. We might bring John Perry in. He joins me quite a bit for some of these live shows. But let's get on that later. Hey, before we get into our main topic of planning and all that sort of stuff. Give me a little bit of a bit of information about your rowing journey, how you started, when you started, what keeps you going and what keeps you motivated.
Guy. Well, I started as a teenager. I probably would have been about 15 or 16. I didn't go to a rowing school like a lot of the people that row. I was at a high school and. But my father rowed, so I encouraged. He used to take me down when I was a little tacker. He was a senior oarsman down at Richmond. He was emergency for the Victorian crew in 1951, and he used to take me down to the rowing club as a little bloke. And when I got into my sort of mid-teenage years, 15 or 16, I said to him, "Look, I think I'd like to row, Dad. Could you take me down and teach me how to row?" And because he was very good about it, he never pushed me into, he never, pressured me into rowing, which I think he would have loved that I did row, and he was happy that I did. He sort of had he took a step back, and I thought that was a great approach because it made me more interested, and I got involved that way. And Richmond were rowing out of Melbourne Grammar at that stage, and where Dad and I took the pair out for my very first row, an old icebreaker wooden tub pair. I dropped it on the floor of Melbourne Grammar to the great consternation of one of Richmond's committee men, and he let go an expletive at me dropping the boat. But I managed to pick it up again and pressed on, put the boat on the water, and Dad and I went out for my first row, and off I was. I never looked back, basically, Guy.
That would have been a coxed pair too, probably, was it?
It was a cox pair, so someone was coxing us. Yeah.
The old coxed pair. They still exist, don't they? I know that James Rook recently won a world championship in coxed pair. I don't know if they still do, but...
No, it's not a championship race anymore, but I have rowed a lot of cox pairs over the years, as well as cox's pairs, obviously, yeah.
I must admit, as a coxswain, I'd feel a bit guilty sitting in a pair making two of you do all the work, but...
Well, I remember when Greg and I were racing, we were chatting to a couple of blokes from Banks. I think one of them might have been Jim Lowe, and he came up to us and was chatting to us after the race, and he described it as the slave boat.
Yeah, it's probably a very good way to describe it. Oh gosh, yeah. But so. Based on a bit of brief mathematics, what you're telling me here is you've been rowing about half a century. Is that about right?
Yeah, I started in 1970. I had my first race in 1972. So we're talking, 52 something years.
So how's that possible when you're only 46, JB?
Oh, time travel guy.
Okay, well, I'll say a physical age of 46. How's that? And a mental age of what, 36? Or is that?
Yeah.
Or should I say 80? I don't know. We're all young at heart, JB. We're all young at heart. That's what keeps us going in this crazy sport. Now, this sort of leads us into a little bit of the main topic of conversation, which I want to discuss. And the reason I reckon you're a great one to discuss it with, because you've been doing it for more than most, that's for sure, for 50-odd years. You're a stalwart of the Yarra River. For those that don't know you, they'd certainly know you by face, that is for sure. But when you're at this stage of the year, and we're talking June, it's cold, it's miserable, and with the exception of the winter scullers, who are a little bit loopy, I say that with respect as someone who loves the winter sculling, not this year, too cold for that for me, but anyway. We've got to start thinking of the season ahead. What's going through your mind when you come up to another rowing season? Are you trying to plan for something in particular? Have you got thoughts? You're chatting to other people? Where are you at this point of the year for this season approaching?
I've taken sort of a bit of a step back this year because of the disappointment of last season. That the culmination was the state championships, and we didn't really do as well as we would have hoped, and there were a lot of factors leading into that. But I've recommitted myself this year, and I'm still doing the ergos, as you know.
Yeah.
And looking forward to getting back in the boat and maybe getting some settled crews going, getting some combinations going, spending some time on the water, some nice long rows, weather permitting. And this year I'm going to Brandenburg with the sculling. Basically, it's called the sculling squad, I suppose, because most of the scullers there will be a bit of sweep rowing. So we're going to the World Masters Games in September, and that should give me a nice kick along, as well as the rest of us, of course. A good starting point for fitness for the rest of the season.
That'll give you a massive starting point for fitness, but it's interesting to see you at this later stage in your rowing career to ditch the single oar and move on to the dual oars. I'm not saying ditch that, because obviously you are a sweep rower by trade, but it's great to see you putting the two oars in.
Yeah, well, look, a lot of people that come into rowing later in life, a lot of masters rowers, they start off as scullers. I guess it's probably the most symmetrical and logical thing to do, to start off sculling and then perhaps move into sweep rowing a little bit later. I've heard a couple of people say that they're scared of pair rowing because of the fact that it just seems a little bit tippy to them because of you haven't got that natural balance of the two oars, the oar on each side.
I reckon pair rowing's terrifying, JB.
It can be, but if you've sort of grown up with it, I guess it's sort of second nature. But I've enjoyed going back to sculling. I'll do a lot of things wrong. I've got a lot of improvement to go in terms of my sculling technique, but I'm enjoying sculling. I started I think my first sculling race might have been the
Salty?
It might have been. I think it might have even been before that. It might have been we had a sculling race with a couple of the blokes that we rode that for with at Footscray. That might have been anyway. But it might have been the Salty.
That would have been that exactly the season, the end of the season before at the Footscray Regatta.
Yeah. But we trained for the Salty and had a go at that, and we really enjoyed that. And I had a few sculling races this year, and I've been out in the sculling in the quads and doubles a couple of times since getting ready for Brandenburg, and really enjoying it.
That's a great way to have motivation. I mean, I'm always driven by an event that's coming up that makes it motivating, and especially international makes it even more exciting. You just touched on something there that just came straight to my mind. As you said, the blokes that we rode the four in. That was not season before last, and I reckon we had a great a great group going there. We had structure, we had fitness, we planned, we focused, and we executed, our training plans. And I think, regardless of results, I think that gave a lot of satisfaction to all of us, including me as the passenger, for getting something really out of that year.
Well, it was a great thought of rowing, because we had 4 guys basically that were committed. We were doing the work in and out of the water.
Yep.
And we were trying hard. You took us through, a number of, really good, hard training sessions, which we enjoyed. And we had success. We won a couple of races, came very close in the state champs, and of course got in the final at Henley. So I thought it was quite a productive, rewarding season in that 4. It was a terrific 4.
Absolutely. I'd love to get that 4 back together, but we're missing someone, Trev, in case you're listening in. But anyway, we can discuss that one later. So coming back to the conversation of planning, so, and this is you're really answering. Well, I'm sort of gleaning from what you're saying. You're planning by default because you're going to Brandenburg. So there is a short-term plan is to get up and running for that. That will then roll into a medium to longer term plan for next season, and you'll have fingers crossed that there's people who are going to jump on board moving into the head racing season to get some sweep rowing up and going, isn't it? Is that what you're sort of thinking?
Yeah, and look, it's going to be it's a different year, so there'll be different people, and hopefully there'll be some people that will progress through the ranks, will come up into the senior, what we would probably refer to as the senior sweep squad. Yep. And you probably know some of the guys that I'm thinking of, and I think it'll be very refreshing to have some new faces around the place, some enthusiasm, and just generally, hopefully, get a recommitment from the whole squad that we're going to give it a red hot go and try and aim for the state champs, which I don't even know where they're going to be.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, sorry, I should say. I'm not sure where the Nationals are going to be this year, but...
Yeah. No, I agree, because we have done well in the past, and Ballarat was a lot of fun a few years ago. You had to put up with me for 4 days, JB. That was probably that's probably the biggest endurance event you've ever had to deal with.
Oh no, it was great fun that weekend. We had the visit from the Tooth Fairy and all sorts of things happened.
We did have a visit from the Tooth Fairy. Look, I'm loving this conversation because I think you and I are very much on the same page, and there's a few guys at our club. And whilst we're talking about our club here, this conversation, without doubt, would resonate through all clubs, because all clubs have these, issues to deal with, or situations to deal with as they work through their processes and their planning for the seasons ahead. But I do love chatting with you because you are so motivated and focused, and when you do talk, I know people do listen, because you've been around, you've worked hard, and you stay focused. And even when you're talking earlier, and now the problem is that we've done this chat 3 times, that it's blurring into my mind of which part is being recorded. But we were chatting earlier, and you were certainly, I was gleaning a lot of motivational talk, yet you were saying that you lost a bit of interest last season because of certain things and motivations of training and keeping people up and running. But you've kept going though, JB. What is your I'm not going to say number one pet hate, but what is your focus and expectation of those that are jumping in a boat with you to be, competitive? What would you expect at the bare minimum?
Without going into too much detail, I would expect that guys would, especially during the season and particularly in the lead up to races, especially important races, would ease back on some of the excesses that perhaps they could normally be indulging in. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, that's a fair call. I think And I know myself from my main sport, which I think most people listen to these podcasts know is triathlon. You can't have a few beers the night before a race and expect to do any good. And you do have to focus on diet and all of those sort of things. And then you can have as many beers as you want afterwards, can't you, JB?
Oh, look, the thing about rowing is if you train hard, you can get off the water, you can have a couple of beers, have a chat, have a laugh, and after a regatta, you can have a couple of beers once the work is done. But you've got to make sure that in the lead up to the work and between races that you stay focused.
We have had that hurdle a few times, haven't we, unfortunately? I'm not necessarily adverse to that, but what I don't like is when everyone's not on the same page. In other words, there's guys like yourself and others that work your butts off, and I think they deserve you all deserve the respect for others to work their butts off too, and that's certainly my view. And I make sure I go for a run before even jumping into the boat to Cox, because I feel guilty as a Cox even having not done any physical work.
Well, this is the thing, Guy, and you look, in most cases, you know that the blokes around you, if you get out there and the coach tells you you're going to do 6, 7, 1,000 pieces, you do it. You might have a bit of a gristle and a grumble, but you'll get out there and do it. Most of the guys that do the work do it conscientiously, and when you're finished, you can get back into the clubhouse, have a couple of beers, have a laugh, and
absolutely. I've got to say, actually, this is what I actually enjoy boxing the women's crews, because I never get pushback on, all right, guys, this is what we're going to do. And I always like to tell people, as long as they're buying into the concept, of course, some I just don't bother, but if they're buying into the concept, and I'll say before we go on the water, as you know all too well, this is what our plan is tonight. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. And you might go, oh, shit, we're doing 6 1K pieces tonight. I really don't feel like it, but I'm going to do it. And I've got to say, with the women's crews, I never get a complaint, ever. I can't think of any time but with the men's crews, I can even say as simple as, look, jump on the ergo, guys, for 5 minutes. Let's warm up our bodies, because, hey, we're not young. Let's warm up our bodies before we get on the water. Oh, my God, do I get a pushback? No, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. It's like, well, I don't understand. I'm only trying to help.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, Guy, because I was just going to add there before that another great thing about rowing is when you work hard, and it's a tough sport, rowing, when you work hard, reward yourself with a couple of drinks afterwards. No problem with that. And that's what it's all about. You do the work, you get off the water, and then you can reward yourself with a couple of beers. As long as you keep everything within moderation. But on that topic of the women, I've gone out a couple of times, the crew that's training for Brandenburg, and in most cases it's been predominantly made up of women. And I quite honestly say that originally I was thinking, this will be a nice little pleasure row up the Yarra. They trained their butts off.
Yep.
Guys, I got out of the boat, I got completely exhausted both times, and I'm thinking, this is great. They get down to the club, they get out on the water, they're going to Germany, or I'm going there as well, and they've decided that they're not going to waste any time when they're on the water, and they train hard. I was just blown away. I was delighted.
And the thing that goes with that too, JB, is you all go to Germany, you'll come back in October, and you're as fit as fiddles. But then you got to do it all again. You don't get downtime. You're right through. So you're going to have a whole sort of, in theory, an 18-month season.
Yeah. I noticed how what I would refer to as the senior women's quad, they went to Brandenburg, and when they went to Le Bourne in France 2 years ago. When they came back, they had a real cracking season after that. They had really improved. They'd gone through some sort of, some sort of ceiling, and they really had set the bar high.
And most importantly, JB, they won me my first Melbourne Head medal.
That's there, exactly.
So all of those cold nights, training them through winter ahead of France, Le Borgne, that's what it was, wasn't it? Le Borgne. Yep, that paid off with that one little medal. As I've always said to all of you guys, I'll work as hard as I can as a Cox and do as much as I can as a Cox, and all you have to do is give me a few medals. It's really simple.
Yeah. It's a simple equation.
But you've got to buy into it, and that's one of the things. And I'm sure a lot of coaches would probably experience this too, and so forth. But if no one buys into what you're trying to sell, for lack of a better description, it makes it very hard to get some success. But I think we've got at our club, and again this resonates, I'm sure, to all clubs, is that people are always coming through the ranks, and I can certainly see some people that we've got down there that are really shining from their motivation and their dedication, and hopefully that can rub off on a few of the more experienced guys who may sit on their laurels a little bit, because if you've got people. Sorry, was that JB?
It's great to have people coming through. You need to be able to get a new broom and all this sort of stuff. You need to be able to refresh the group now and then. Life goes on. People decide to do different things and might have a season or two off or go overseas or whatever. So you have people coming through all the time, and it's great because you can't just stagnate and hope that you're going to have the same people back 12 months later. Things move on, and new people come in with new ideas, motivation, as you say, and it's very refreshing. See some new faces around.
Motivation, dedication, and a bit of competition. A lot of TIONs in the end there, but that's all the stuff that keeps sports clubs in general going, isn't it? And certainly rowing is no different. And rowing is a hard sport. Let's be honest. It's probably one of the tougher of sports because not only you do the physical exertion, you got to have that commitment to time, and you need to be there.
Well, Guy, I don't know whether we've mentioned it in this iteration or whether it was one of the other.
That's the problem, JB. We've done 3 goes at this, and I can't remember what we've discussed.
I can't remember which one it was in, but I remember saying to you that in years gone by, when I finished my full-time rowing, in 1987 when I officially retired, and you turn up with a couple of your mates to a regatta, and you'd say, oh yeah, you put a late entry in for a Masters 4, and you'd get out there and just jump in a boat and you might even win. Yeah. But Masters rowing is now super competitive, and there's a lot of people, which is great to see. It's really a sort of sport within a sport. There's huge numbers of people doing it. Fantastic to see all the women involved. Yes. And but competitive, and you've got to train, and you've got to be dedicated. And if you want to go out there and just muck around and have fun, that's fine. But if you want to win races, you have to train hard. And, you see guys out there in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s in my case, training hard, working hard to reach a goal. It's not just jumping in a boat anymore.
No, and that's a mindset right there, isn't it? It's bigger than rowing. It's a mindset. It's I won't use the word lifestyle, that's a bit cheesy, but it is a mindset about focusing on what you're out there to do. And we're only amateurs, we are only having fun, but you do have to commit, you do have to put down, and you can get the results. But again, coming back to what I said earlier, I think that's where I get frustrated when some people aren't putting in the work and others are. And that's not a criticism of anyone, mind you. I'm not having a go at those that aren't, but you can jump into a boat with people who just want to have a bit of fun, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
So JB, having done this 3 times, we probably should wind it up now. Because I don't know what we've said and what we haven't said in this final iteration. And it is a final iteration. I can see the recording button on. I can see my microphone is active and working properly. And I can see by your response looking at me that you are hearing me. So I reckon we might have got it right this time.
Yeah, I think so. Your mic didn't cut out at any stage. I could hear you the whole time this time.
Thank God for that. I do again appreciate your tenacity and putting up with this, because it'd be very easy to say no. But I'm gonna get an early invitation, and I will be doing this. We will do a live Facebook show ahead of the Yarra. We'll do it on the Monday night ahead of the race, and I hope you can jump in on that one. You might need to have a shave though, JB. You might need to present, and.
If it's going to be a visual as well as audio, is it?
It'll be visual as well as audio. Absolutely, it will. It's going to be a live show on Facebook.
Oh, well, I'll run the comb through the hair then.
Run the comb through the hair. I can't do that, of course. I gave that up many years ago. But no, we'll do it live on Facebook. We've had a few great ones. We've had one ahead of the Head of Schoolgirls. We had a great show there. We had one ahead of the boat race, the Oxford-Cambridge boat race. John Perry was my co-host for that. And we're going to have one in a I think it's about a fortnight's time ahead of the Henley Royal Regatta. So I'll have a bit of a live show for a bit of fun. We get our mate Road Trade involved. Road Trade, not Road Trade. Roman. God, why do they use the word Roman there? Roman Repairs. Rob Manning, of course. He's giving us some advice on how to clean boats, JB, or has that been George giving us advice on how to clean boats?
Yep.
Anyway, look, let's wind this one up. Thank you very much for joining me. It's been great. It's been inspirational. I hope that a few people who listen to this will be motivated for the season ahead. Focusing on planning. I think one of the key takeaways there is have some structure in your training. Focus on what you're going to do and what you want to achieve, and get like-minded people in the boat with you in order to get the outcomes. Is that a fair synopsis, do you think, JB?
That's exactly. You've got to have something to aim at, something to aim for, and you need a program to get there. That's exactly right, Guy.
Beautiful. Well, good on you. Well, thanks, chatting. JB, we will do this all again in a few months' time ahead of the great Head of the Yarra race. Thank you very much.
Will do, Guy. Looking forward to it, and see you Monday on the Zoom Ergo session.
We'll see you Monday on the Zoom Ergo session, of course. See you, JB.